All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have Jared and Ashley who are going to take us through a travel nursing deep dive about choosing an agency. And also, we just want to thank you so much for joining Trusted tonight for this event. For those of you all who don't know, Trusted is a travel nursing company who places nurses in all 50 states. So if you guys need an assignment, I know they're upticking these days. We're your agency. But without further ado, I'll also go into like some Q&A and some just housekeeping rules, just so everyone can, watch the event appropriately and get everything they need out of this. There we go. All right. So if you guys look on your right-hand side, I see a lot of you guys are writing in the chat and saying hello, which is great. There's also a button there that's for Q&A. So if you just go in there, I will be floating these questions to the host later on in the event. So don't worry. I will make sure that all your questions get answered. And if you see a question that someone else has asked that you like, you can always upvote that, and I'll make sure I'll get that one to them. Definitely listen and learn and connect with your fellow nurses as you guys are. And then just get inspired to choose your best agency. We always want the best for you, whatever agency that is. So that's why we're going to go do into this deep dive. If you guys are having any audio trouble, you can go out of the event and try to do a visual and audio check. If that doesn't work, you can also use Chrome. And then also try to close out your browsers. If neither of those work, just hit the help desk button, and that's in that same area, the question mark on the chat. And someone will be right there to help you as well, okay? And you all can DM me as well, Britt Greaves, just in case, it's still not working and something else happens and you're unable to get anybody, okay? We are recording this event, so if you guys miss anything or you have to hop or anything like that, we know that you guys are nurses and we appreciate you guys so much if you guys are, tuning in during your shift or anything like that. But don't worry, don't fret. We will be sending this recording out to you guys a little bit later. So don't feel like you're not going to get the information, okay? All right. So first we'll have the introductions of who Jared and Ashley are, our great hosts. And then we'll talk about how agencies work, as well as recruiters, knowing your agency, and then how Trusted is different. And as I said, the main thing is our Q&A. All of us have been travel nurses. I was a travel nurse for 5 years. So we are definitely your go-tos for all this information. And if, we're unsure about any of this information, I will make sure that I get you all's email so that I can email you any questions that we're unable to ask, okay? So don't feel like it won't get answered if, we don't have the answer, okay? And we thank you again for just coming in today. So now we have Ashley.
Hey everyone, so I'm Ashley. I am a pediatric NP, as you can see, and I'm also founder and CEO of the Renegade Resume LLC. It's just a nursing resume and career services business. I'm originally from Queens and have been living in the DMV area for over 10 years now. I went to Johns Hopkins for my BSN and for my MSN for my pediatric NP. As a nurse, I worked in the PICU pretty exclusively, pediatric ICU and pediatric cardiac ICU. 1 year I spent traveling kind of in California and Virginia before I took a primary care NP position, which I actually just quit at the end of June. So much of anything nursing. I will start teaching shortly, but right now I'm kind of not doing anything. The Renegade Resume has been going on for a little over 2 years now, which is crazy. So if you need your resume done or needs to get updated, please hit us up. And my fun fact that I always use is that I tap dance. I took tap dancing for work. And you can catch me, Ashley the MP, on Instagram.
Sweet deal. Thanks, Ashley. Hey guys, my name is Jared Lubrico. I'm originally from San Diego. I've been a peds ED trauma nurse for 7 years now, 3 of which has been traveling. So best decision I've made. So I highly encourage you to follow through on this after the presentation's done. I'm currently working as a nurse manager for the DC Department of Health here in Washington, DC. So yes, you can travel as a nurse manager. I didn't have nurse manager experience before this, but it is possible. A fun fact about me, I guess relevant to this topic, is I actually worked for HBO, worked from home as a nurse through Trusted. So that definitely is possible too. So yeah, there's a lot of avenues you can do with travel nursing. So I encourage you to take all this information and get out there. So I'm just going to hop right into it. All right. So I got assigned the technical mumbo jumbo portion, but it is kind of good to know how this all works. So basically, a hospital identifies a need for the hospital or the organization or the agency. So usually this is due to high census or low staffing. So anyone in the ICU or ED, you guys understand that winter is coming. So these instances are when hospitals are taxed the most and when they need help. So they usually hire high census, low staffing, anticipatory volume. So sometimes in like early fall or late summer, they start preparing for winter and they start taking nurses on board just so they don't get behind the eight ball. Another time they start hiring nurses for travel needs is very specialized needs. So things like COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, health screening were some big ones. And another one recent, actually just got today, is a health assessment nurse for actually the refugees coming from Afghanistan. So basically, anytime an organization has a need, they post it to the MSPs. So the MSP, which is a managed service provider, these are the people, you can kind of think of it as an external HR. So their job is to use this need from the hospital and basically do the whole hiring process front to back, top to bottom for the hospital. So if a hospital, for example, is up to their neck in ICU patients, it's the MSP's need to fill those 20, to find 20 ICU nurses that all fulfill the needs of the hospital. So the hospital says like, okay, we need 20 ICU nurses. They need to have 2 years of experience. They need to have a BSN degree, has to have traveled before, willing to work night shift and any other weekends. Then the MSP takes that information and rolls with it and finds 20 qualified nurses to fulfill that need or that hole. And by doing this allows the organization or the hospital to then focus on patient care, what they do best. A way to think of this is if, like, imagining you're an ICU manager and you're just getting hit with COVID patients and then having to hire 20 more ICU nurses. So this is where an MSP comes in and hiring their staff. A different way to look at it for all of you people that are married or soon to be, or you fiancés, this is kind of like a wedding planner. So it's a lot of work when you have to individually, outsource a photographer, a venue, a florist, everything that you need for a wedding. But what you can do is obviously hire a wedding planner, and they can do that all for you. So that's the way to think of an MSP. So once they identify those needs, Britt, you still there? I'm going to the next slide. All right. So once the need is posted, or once they identify that need, the account managers from the MSP, they receive these job openings from the hospital. They take that need and they post it to the agencies that they're affiliated with. So another way to think of an MSP is they are the middleman between these travel nurse agencies and the hospital that has this need. And it's up to them to basically outsource all these nurses. So that's where the nurse recruiters come in from these agencies. So an MSP can utilize these agencies in one of two ways, basically. So a lot of times these MSPs have their own travel nursing staff. So they hire their own staff. But in some instances, they can outsource some of those needs to other travel nurse agencies. So for example, the contract that I'm on, we hired 140 nurses for this need for this organization, DC Health. And essentially, what an MSP can do is, hey, this contract, this vendor, they need 140 nurses, but we only have 40 to staff them. Then that MSP can utilize its 40 nurses to fill that hole, but then it can also outsource the remaining 100 if they don't have that staff to other travel nurse agencies. So obviously with that, the dollar amount or the bill rate gets trickled down a little bit more than it should be, or basically a little less money in your pocket at the end of the day. So really try, if you're out there chasing paper for these contracts, you can benefit when you have an agency that also doubles as an MSP. On that note, just a term that you'll hear throughout once you start travel nursing is the bill rate. So the bill rate is essentially the amount that hospital organization is willing to pay that travel nurse agency or that MSP to hire you. So, for example, if the bill rate is $150 per hour for that nurse, that company pays $150 an hour to that MSP or that agency, and then it's up to that agency to take that $150 and distribute it out to the nurse. So a lot of times they say the cut is like 20% for the MSP and the agency. So for $150 bill rate, you can probably expect to see something like $100 an hour. For a $70 an hour bill rate, you can probably end up having $50 an hour after it goes through the MSP and the recruiter and all that. So once these openings are sent to the agencies, that's when the recruiters match these needs to the individual nurses. So they kind of know, hey, Ashely is looking for a PICU position in Los Angeles. So, and then a PICU position in Los Angeles opens up, and so that's when the recruiters know to reach out for those individual nurses. So essentially, you can think of a recruiter as like your personal broker or matchmaker to find you the needs that are currently available. So on that note, Ashely is going to take it over to recruiters.
All right. So I think that's one of the, thank you so much for all that info, because I didn't even know all of that stuff, Jared. So for recruiters, I think that's probably one of the biggest topics you'll hear travel nurses talk about. And like, we'll ask another travel nurse, like, hey, who's your recruiter? Like, do you like her? Things like that. Or him. Or them. Anyway, things to think about when you're researching different agencies or talking to different recruiters is asking them if they do reimbursements and how they do reimbursements for things like licensing and certifications. There's some companies that'll send you to someone that they have like a connection with, and we'll pay it up front for you. Or if you want to go to someone else, like to get your BLS redone or something, then they'll have to put it in your paycheck. So things like that. Or some don't offer any reimbursement. So just make sure you're asking these questions. Another thing is like travel and lodging costs. So a lot of times in contracts, you'll be paid X amount of dollars for housing expenses and meals. But oftentimes that doesn't include you getting there in the beginning. Whatever travel or money is spent on like flying to that city and things may not be included. So those are questions to ask, your recruiter and every agency. And as I said, the process and timeline. I've heard horror stories of people who are supposed to get reimbursed for something in May, and it's knocking on November. They still haven't seen it. Everyone's like, oh, we didn't get the receipt, things like that. So just like ask questions like that. Another big difference that I've noticed when I was travel nursing is the onboarding experience. Some offices or some agencies are still very like paper, PDF, email-y type situations where you're tracking down a whole bunch of PDFs and things that you save so that you can email them, or even print them out and scan them type situation. Whereas others have like a nice online system where you can upload everything and you know what's already submitted, what hasn't been submitted. You're not worried about things getting lost in email. So just like the convenience of the process is something to consider. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I know I've had times where, having to go through a whole bunch of emails to make sure everything was submitted has actually taken so much time that I lost a contract that I was trying to get because another more efficient agency was able to get their nurse submitted sooner. So it's kind of interesting to see how that plays out, especially when like time is of the essence. And then also benefits. A lot of times you'll hear travel nurses aren't like don't have great benefits, or have to find benefits on their own and things like that, which isn't always necessarily the case. I had one travel agency that had a whole 401k match program for their travel nurses. I'm still in. I don't know how, but I'm still in it. I'm not saying anything. They sometimes will have discounts and perks like airlines or hotels and things like that. So make sure you check into all that those places offer. Sometimes they can be really beneficial, especially if you like to travel. And of course, your everyday medical, dental, vision, life insurance benefits. Like make sure you check those out and see what everyone has to offer, because it definitely varies by agency. I can go to the next slide. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So recruiters, basically how they work. So I know you touched on it, Jared, but a lot of times they are commission based. So the more nurses they place, and honestly, the more higher amount of that they can get you paid is usually the more they're getting paid as well. But this is what they're responsible for. Like they're not just there to just find you a job. Like they're one to communicate, the availability of physicians. So if you say, hey, I'm a PICU nurse, I will go to NICU, I'll go to cardiac ICU, things like that. You're expecting them to be letting you know when these positions are available as soon as they, are available, especially for some of those like really popular areas. Like I know like back in the day, pre-COVID times, like California was always the spot you wanted to be at. So everyone, a lot of the contracts would go really, really quickly in California. So just making sure you have a recruiter that's on the ball, ensuring that your profile is complete at all times. I had a recruiter once that was really good about making sure like 90 days out, like, hey, you have to have your BLS renewed, make sure you get that done and send me the new stuff so I can make sure everything is up to date. And just kind of being ahead of the game so that when that, coveted position does come up, you're ready to go. They're also, of course, responsible for submitting your profile for assignment consideration. So I remember I had this one incident where my first ever travel assignment, I was so upset with my recruiter because I had asked her to submit me for a contract. It was actually an extension of my contract, but it was weird. Like I couldn't extend, like I had to do a whole new contract. It was something weird, but I was like, okay, like I want to stay here. So can you submit me? And she didn't submit me for like 9 days. And like, there was no position for me left. And it was like a whole hullabaloo for me to be able to get, to be able to stay. So like making sure that like they're on it and stuff like that. That they're responsible for. They're also responsible for providing like accurate information about pay and things like that. I had one friend who, even just little facility rules, like what color scrubs you're supposed to wear. I had a friend who was told that, oh, you can wear whatever you want. She shows up in like her hot pink scrubs, so where everyone's wearing navy. And she's like, like, what is going on? I had no idea. So just like accurate information like that. And then also, and I think the most important is advocating for nurses while on assignment. I've had like really great experiences with this and really not so great experiences. I've had like recruiters that are checking in with me like almost like every day at the beginning just to make sure, hey, is everything good? Is everyone nice? Are you having any issues? Like, are you, make sure everything's okay? And if something does go on, they're really, really quick to respond and, advocate for you. And then you sometimes will have the opposite of that where you don't hear from them and they kind of wait for you to reach out, which sometimes isn't, easy to do, especially when you're working, 3 in a rows and things like that. Like the last thing you're thinking about is emailing your recruiter. So it's nice to have some model where they're kind of already reaching out to you. How do I know I have the best recruiter for me? So basically it's like summary of what I was just saying. You want to have someone who's like open and honest. They're letting you know what's going on, what's real. Like, hey, I know you really want this, but it's not really looking hot for this. Like, would you consider this and that? Giving you options and like being honest about the situation. Versus having a recruiter that's like hard to reach, rarely follows up, seems to be too busy for you all the time. You're not really getting what you need. Also making sure you have a recruiter that listens to your requests. This is huge. Because you will have recruiters sometimes, like I've had this happen where recruiters submitted me to a position I was not at all trying to do. Like she was trying to convince me for the longest to go to Texas. This is way pre-COVID. I'm like, I don't want to go to Texas. And she's like, oh, well, I submitted you. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't want to go there. So, yeah, she and we didn't work out great and I had to get rid of her. But yeah, things to look out for is just like kind of taking things into their own hands without talking to you. It's not great. Willing to negotiate and advocate on your behalf is huge. Like if you get a rate and you have things to say about it, like, hey, I was actually thinking about this or whatever the case is, they should be willing to negotiate that on your behalf or tell you it's not negotiable and what your other options are if you are really looking for a certain rate and things like that or a certain shift. Checks in with you. As I said, you really want to make sure that you have someone that is making sure that you're good while you're away, especially when you're first starting. It's kind of scary in the beginning. So you want someone who's going to advocate for you. And especially this as a new travel nurse, this takes time to explain and practices like transparency and everything that is going on. A lot of times like they can be really rushy trying to get you submitted for an assignment. And like sometimes it comes from a good place, but make sure you have someone who is like willing to take a pause and explain to you like, okay, so what's going on and why did this change? And I thought it was this and now it's that. Like, if you're not getting the answers you need, run.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashely. So moving from the recruiters to the agencies. So essentially, in order to get assigned a recruiter, you have to first start and sign up with an agency. Or actually, you can actually find a recruiter, and then you can just find the agency that they work with and just kind of get reeled in. But anyway, where I would start with selecting an agency is just to start with, research. Do your research. The best and most reliable way I found of doing this is word of mouth. So I assume most of you guys are probably staff or core nurses trying to start traveling. So start probing around your unit, start asking about the travel nurses or the core nurses who had travel experience. Hey, who did you travel with? Who did you work for? Like which agency? And then find out what factors from that agency like they like the most, because that word of mouth is going to have the most value. A lot of you have probably found the Facebook like hiring groups and all that, and the travel nurse groups and everything, but a lot of that can be peanut gallery type information. It's some random person on the internet halfway across the world that's their opinion of this agency or that recruiter. So I really think when you're researching agencies, find your close friends, your close coworkers, ask them what their opinions are, and then kind of roll with that. Because chances are you're most like your friends, and so you will most likely be compatible with those agencies or those recruiters that they're using. Another little life hack to this situation is that a lot of these agencies have a referral bonus. Trusted's is $1,000. Other agencies are $500. So when you find these other travel nurses, be like, hey, hook me up with your recruiter and let's split the bonus, or I'll give you half of my bonus. I've done that several times now, and it works both ways. So with that said, know the trends for all these agencies. So when you ask around, you're going to start knowing the trends for what kind of characteristics these agencies have. Like some of them are known for like being pretty sales sharky. Some of them can take a while to submit your profile. Some of them submit your profile really quickly. Some of them have like high pressure sales. So really, once you start asking around and probing around your friends or your coworkers, you'll really start to identify the things that each agency is known for. So another way to kind of look. I still have some more. Sorry, Britt. And so Another way to approach this is know where you want to go, because a lot of these agencies have exclusive contracts. So just know where and who sources the contracts for that specific hospital. Prior to this presentation, I just told we're not going to be using any specific names of agencies. So just know who sources which hospitals, and you can find this through friends or hospitals. These are called exclusive contracts. So you'll notice a lot of contracts in the California or San Diego area belong to this certain agency. Some in the West Coast or East Coast belong to this certain agency. So find out who sources who, and that way, because if you have a certain hospital or organization in mind, like, oh, I really want to work at CHOP, or I really want to work at Seattle Children's Hospital, find the agencies that staff those hospitals, because that's the only way you're going to get to those certain hospitals. On that note, cast a net. So I personally have like 6 or 7 agencies. I've traveled with 4 in the past, and the more you have at your arsenal, the more likely you are to nail a contract. Another way you can use this is leverage for bargaining. So when a contract offers you, or a certain recruiter from a certain agency offers you, you know, $2,000 for this contract, but another agency is offering you $2,500 a week for that same exact job, you're going to use that leverage, and you're possibly going to take that $2,500 position, or you can come back to that other company and say, hey, this company is offering $2,500. Can you beat that? Can you do $2,600, or can you increase my number of days off, or can you match my vacation request? Things like that. So I would start looking into several agencies to have at your arsenal, so that you can, again, use that bargaining leverage and then cast your net so that you can hit all the exclusive contracts, and you have basically all these recruiters and agencies working at your disposal. The only downside to this and to this method is that you do have to update your profile with every single agency whenever you're ready to apply. So basically, you're doing the same assessment skills checklist. You're doing the same BLS and ACLS upload, PALS uploading of certificates. You're updating your resume for every one of these assignments, or for every one of these agencies. But I do believe it's worth it in the long run. A lot of the times you won't even have to wait to find your next assignment. They're basically just always available, and those recruiters want to give you those assignments. And so that's how, so we can go on to how trusted is different. Well, let me put my computer in. So I've worked mostly with Trusted the majority of my travel nurse career. I have worked with others, but I always gravitate back to Trusted. I'm actually quitting this contract right now to come back onto the platform. So the reason I like it the most is because of the matching platform. Once you start working with your recruiters and your agencies, like Ashely said, a lot of them are very pushy, very sales sharky. It's all commission based for those agencies, so they're really just trying to push that sale on you, push that contract on you. So they have sometimes some of them have a very car salesman type feel to them. But with Trusted, it's you pretty much choose when and where you want to work, and you put the parameters like, oh, I want day shift. I'm ready to start on September 2nd. And basically, Trusted's platform will only match you to those that meet your search criteria. And honestly, it's awesome logging in every day and seeing your matches from what jobs are available. I don't know if Hinge and Bumble ruined me that way, but every time I see a match, I'm like stoked to see what is coming out. So yeah, so matching platform, you basically choose where and when you want to work, and when, and basically it'll match you for the current jobs that are currently opening or during that time frame that you selected. Whereas sometimes with other agencies, they can basically be probing you for like an ASAP start, like, can you be in Miami by next Tuesday, or this contract is out for like 3 months out. So you choose when and where you want to work. The care team, they walk you through the whole process when you're onboarding. So you have a compliance coordinator, you have a nurse advocate, you have an onboarding specialist. So basically, the whole care team walks you through the whole process from finding a job, making sure you're compliant, and then once you have that job, they basically check on you to make sure everything is smooth sailing throughout your time there on the contract. So lots of resources to help you find a contract, stay on the contract, and more. A lot of the things that a lot of people like about Trusted is the pay is all up front. There's no negotiating. Basically, what you see is what you get. There's this common misconception that like because Trusted doesn't offer any negotiating, that basically there's no nickel and diming. Like they consider all the factors that what you would pay for that assignment. So travel expenses, license reimbursement, all the certifications, they just give it to you right off the bat. It's not like a Spirit Airlines ticket where you have to like pay for your water bottle and then you have to pay for your check-in luggage and then you pay for like $40 for your carry-on. Everything is included right off the bat, and there's no bargaining, no negotiating. So the common misconception is that they don't reimburse you for those things, but it's actually already in the contract. So this could be helpful for some of you that are like timid or don't know how to use that leverage that I talked about earlier. So basically you log in and you put in all your matches, and what you see on that page is what you get, no questions asked. So basically it's just kind of nice knowing what you're going to make right off the bat, and you don't have to basically argue with anyone to get what you truly deserve. So I definitely highly encourage utilizing Trusted if you can, but obviously there's more to it than just the platform. So find an agency that works for you, find a recruiter that works for you, but really maximize your resources to kind of take advantage of this market, especially right now. And that's all I got on that.
Thank you both. That was great. I loved all your commentary. So we'll get into the Q&A portion of this. So if you guys just want to drop all your questions, we will answer them. What is Trusted's... Oh, wait, hold on. I'm just kidding, guys. Let me go to the top. How can you professionally end or pause your profile with an agency without burning a bridge with that agency? The recruiter I currently have is just too aggressive and our communication styles don't mesh. I have yet to get my first contract with this agency. Congrats on being a new traveler, just to start off. You guys can answer either one. You got it.
Yeah, because I break up with people all the time. So first thing is be honest and say, hey, is there any other recruiter that I could work with? When I was telling you guys all that bad stuff that happened with me, that was with one recruiter who did all of those things. And I thought I was really, really patient. And after a while, I was like, this can't be crazy. This is too much. So I ended up reaching out. Like I called the main number as if I was trying to sign up to be a travel nurse again, and was like, hey, I'm already with you guys, but I can't with the recruiter I have. And they were very quick. I mean, within minutes, I was assigned to another recruiter. Like they were like, oh yeah, no problem at all, no issue. Just please don't leave us. Like so, I think the moral of the story is you are the commodity at any agency, and you should feel empowered by that because you have an option of hundreds of agencies and you're choosing to work with them. So if for whatever reason something isn't meshing, they honestly are grateful that you're even willing to continue to work with the agency, because some people be like, F this agency and roll out and go to another one. So just reach out to them. You can, if you don't feel comfortable reaching directly out to the recruiter you're working with, you can always just contact their main number or, main contact email, whatever, and just let them know that it's not working anymore. As I said, I had to do that. I had just finished cussing her out. There wasn't any more talking. Unfortunately, we just weren't going to be friends anymore. But yeah, there's absolutely no issue with getting a new recruiter.
like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, guys, do not stay in toxicity. Okay. I'm sorry. It's not worth it. Travel nursing is, like we all say, one of the best decisions we all made, but it's the best decision because of those who are supporting you. So if you don't feel like your recruiter is supporting you, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Just like Jared said about Bumble, there are plenty of fish in the sea.
Also, like, please don't be like me and take entirely too long and allow them to like mess up too many times before you say something. Like, that was my newbie mistake, and where I kind of felt the same way, like, oh, well, you feel like you're coming and asking them for something, which, I mean, you are, but at the end of the day, they're providing you a service, and so are you. You're providing your skills. So the minute something doesn't feel right, head on out. Don't wait too long, because it usually doesn't get better. It usually just gets worse.
I don't. Yeah, you guys pretty summed it up pretty nicely. Just find a recruiter that kind of aligns with what your needs are. I am strictly business with the assignments I want. I'm just gonna be truthful right off the bat. I want to hit the coolest cities, and I want to get paid the most for it, and that's pretty much my deciding factor. So I want recruiters that are basically going to submit me the fastest and the highest pay. So those are my needs. You know, some of my friends, the recruiters are like their best friends. They call them on the 16-hour road trips, and they talk to them. They send them like Starbucks gift cards and all these things, but just give them my paycheck and I'm good. And so just make sure your recruiter aligns with what your needs are, and that'll pretty much set you up for success. And that's how to really enjoy this job.
All right. For Orly, yes, we do work with Canadian nurses. So what I can do is I can email you directly, and I can look into your actual profile if you've completed it, and see who your NA is, and we can have somebody reach out to you. But we have a lot of Canadian nurses, and we help with all the paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So I can try to get somebody to actually reach out specifically to you, okay? And you can DM me as well if you have any specific questions or anything like that. But Trusted does deal with Canadian nurses. For the two stipend questions, yes, they're all stipends are paid directly to nurses in their paycheck. Yes. Geoff, I can, what exactly questions do you have about health insurance? Because it depends on what actual agency you're with. Trusted, like we said earlier, has day one dental, health, vision. And then also other companies, some are day one, some are not day one, some are within 30 days. So it all depends on which agency you're going with. But just so you know, like pro tip, please get insurance day one. Please get insurance day one, because I have had contracts where I hadn't, something happened and it was a bad idea. just for your own like benefit. But you can DM me or ask the question again if you want a more specific health insurance question. And especially if it's specifically to Trusted, I will try to answer it. Okay. Oh, what are some of the best agencies to work with? So Ashely and I actually never worked with Trusted. I work for Trusted now, obviously, as you guys can see. So of course, we'll say Trusted. But what we also just like to tell you is, like Jared said, ask your friends, ask people around you, and they can kind of lead you in the best directions, because it's honestly what's best for you, and what you need and what your requirements are. Some agencies, like I said before, they have health insurance day one, they have this, they have that, 401k, all those things. They have PTO. If you need that, definitely go for those companies. If you need other things, there are other companies. Ashely, Jared, besides Trusted, I mean, I don't know if we're going to really plug other agencies today, but
Y'all can find me on Instagram if you really want to know. But y'all know y'all cannot come into a Trusted thing asking about another agency. Like, come on now. Y'all know.
Sorry, guys. It's just not what we can do today. We do not, for Trusted Danielle, we do not pay the travel amount to cover getting to the assignment. Everything is all in within your package. So if like what we always tell people is that if the company is able to give you more to get to and from somewhere, then that means that they're not paying you the enough or what they should be paying you up front for your package. So, but always if you know you see something or another company is offering XYZ amount, like we said, always take that contract and say, hey, this company is giving me XYZ more, and we can try to see what we can do. But if any company is able to like up and down their prices, they're also like holding something back from you in the first place. So that's also just a thought process when you are going for companies that do offer the travel to and from. That's an extra 500 to 1,000. We pay up front all the money that you can get in general. Okay. Can you discuss how crisis contracts work? Once you get a contract, what is the next step in the process, and when should you get more information about the assignment?
I can answer that one because I've been on contract assignments. So, crisis basically hits the fan, and they need people there stat. So when I was deployed or sent to Miami, I accepted the job on a Tuesday and I was sent there on a Thursday. But basically, the company posts a need. This one I think I found on Facebook, and I just DM'd the recruiter. And basically, they vetted you. They went through the whole process like, do you have the proper experience? Do you have your certifications? In this case, in this contract, this was when the license memorandum was in effect, so I didn't even need a Florida license at the time. So basically, they just needed warm bodies to take care of people in Miami. So basically, a recruiter finds you, in this case, Facebook. They tell you what the rate is, you agree to the rate, and basically they vet you and they submit you, and it's up to the hospital to say, hey, we accepted you. So in that case, I think I submitted at like 11 a.m. and then I had a contract in my hands by like 2 p.m. And they said, we start orientation on Thursday. So I packed two large check-in bags, and I booked a $170 ticket to Miami, Florida the next day. And yeah, and I was in Miami starting orientation. When should you get more information? Basically, they give you all the information required to get to your next step. So in that case, they told me, hey, you need to be in Miami from orientation 7 a.m. Thursday. So they basically checked all my credentials, basically made sure I was ready to show up at orientation. They gave me the address, they gave me the pay package, and then once you're at orientation, then that's when you find out the details for your next step. Oh, hey, you're going to be assigned to this branch of this hospital. There was like different hospitals in different counties, and I initially signed up as ED, and then they assigned me to that certain hospital. Sometimes you sign up for these crisis contracts. Sometimes you sign up for basically a free for all. So they say, oh, you're going to be an ED, but you can be day shift, you can be night shift, you can work at this facility in Miami, you can work at this one in Hollywood, this one in Tampa, all these different places around the Miami area. But basically, they give you the information, enough information to get you to the next step. But really, you should have basically 80 to 90%, 80% of the information you need to sign up for that contract right off the bat.
What are travel nurse housing options, or how can you locate housing?
Can take this one too. Um, Either, so honestly, this is going to sound super sketchy, but I have had the best roommates from Craigslist. They were all like super dope people. They were just normal people posting on normal ass ads on Craigslist. I mean, it's you do get some weirdos on there, but obviously that's not the most popular option. The one I try and resort to the most is Facebook groups. So a lot of the times there's going to be a dedicated travel nurse group for that city. So for instance, I'm going to Denver, Colorado next. I think that one is called Mile High City Travelers. And then there's another Denver group called Denver, Colorado Travel Healthcare Travelers or something like that. So I would start off with those Facebook groups that tailor to housing options or those travelers in that city. So So just type travel nurse San Francisco, travel nurse Denver, travel nurse Austin. Another option, a really popular one, is Furnish Finders. I don't like the interface on Furnish Finder. It's like pretty hard to work with, but there are a lot of options for a lot of good value. And the last one is Airbnb. But the pro tip for Airbnb is you find the property that you want to rent from, and then you can either use the platform and kind of use it as like insurance for if anything goes awry. But another thing you can do is you can message that property and ask them to take it off the platform, because some of you may know that Airbnb takes like 10 to 15% or maybe even more of the amount that you pay, and then takes it for using the platform. So ask them, hey, I really like your place. Do you mind taking it off the platform so that you can keep more and I can save more? And so yeah, Facebook groups, Furnish Finder, Airbnb, and also VRBO is another way you can do that little hack, and then Craigslist or word of mouth, find friends. Another thing you can do is when you're talking with your unit manager before you're going on to your assignment, what you can do is say, hey, do you have any staff nurses that are renting out, or any of your current travelers have any recommendations they could reach out to them? So that's the managers are pretty already good to begin with, but that's just kind of like a little back pocket.
How would you go about quitting an assignment? Is it easy?
Take that one because I used to quit all the time. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's easy. Just quit. I hear it's probably not the best thing to do like repeatedly, because then you get like a reputation that you don't like complete your contracts. I didn't travel nurse for that long, so I don't know if I got to feel the wrath of that. But there were two separate occasions that I was like travel nursing while I was looking for permanent NP positions, and then like a position popped up, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna take this. So I'm gonna be done. You just email. I usually email my recruiter first to let them know, like, hey, just so you know, after, like my last day is gonna have to be X, Y, and Z. Something's come up. And then I'll like email the nurse manager and say, hey, my last day is so and so. Something's come up. I'm sorry. The sooner that you know that you'll be leaving, of course, the better, just so that they have time to fill your spot. There was one time where it was only like a week left, so they had asked me if I could just find someone to take the the shifts, and I was able to, like, really easy. They had a pretty big staff. But yeah, just head out.
I can add on to that. When you're a traveler, you're technically considered an as-is employee for the most part. For most contracts, I would look at your contract. So you can quit at any time. You can time, and technically they can fire you at any time without reasonable cause. And so there's like this underlying notion that you kind of can't quit these contracts because they're contracts, but really, if you've been a seasoned travel nurse, you know contracts don't mean jack squat. Not what they do in the business world or other contracting worlds. They will cut you to save any penny. So the only thing I caution with you is if basically just do it as a last resort. So these MSPs, those organizations I talked about first, a lot of them manage the relationships that they can do with agencies. So if you cut a contract with for some super sketchy, shady reason, or let's say you were diverting or something, basically you can get blacklisted. I've never heard of anyone getting blacklisted from these organizations, but essentially that MSP is in charge of all those relationships. So just know that they can basically put your name on a blacklist, and it'll eventually make its way to the agencies. But on that note, if that contract is sketchy, if you do not feel safe, if you do not feel protected, if you don't feel basically supported, definitely quit that contract. It's not worth your license. It's not worth your time, your hassle, your stress, all of that. But I've never been in that scenario, but just know that you're not locked in. So
Plus one, all of that. Someone is in need of ACLS. Does anybody have any help with that? You have somebody? Okay,
I
good.
do, yeah. You can DM me at JLoop.
There you go. Also, you can also check the Facebook groups. A lot of them, if you just ask that same question, it'll be a whole slew of people, either people who offer it or who know somebody or who's in your state. I also have Googled it. One time I needed it within a day and literally like somebody popped up and I was able to get it. So yeah, just definitely use your resources for that one.
Recruiters can and help as well. I had to get
Mhm.
ACLS randomly. I'm PED, so I didn't think I needed it, and one day they were just like, "You need it," and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
ask them if it's a requirement for the job and you don't have it, ask them to reimburse you for it.
Amen and amen. Use your resources always. Um, so for your pre-employment modules, some companies do pay for them and some don't. It's not a one-stop shop, when everything fits all type of answer. It just depends on what company you're with. I've had some companies pay for them. I've had some companies not pay for them. So it's all up to you. I don't know if you guys have the same kind of thing.
Never had to pay. You talking about like the super long 97 page?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
they thought I was paying for that, they are on something because I was.
No, she was
I
asking if
cannot
they
even
get paid
separate.
for them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought I was like, who's charging you for that?
No, that would be a
That would
definite
be
no.
nice. I've never gotten paid for that.
Yeah, it really depends on your company because literally I've been in a hospital where half the people did and half the people didn't. So it literally depends on your contract
Girl,
and
I am
your
not.
company.
I wish I knew people were getting paid for that. See why this is important.
We feel you though. We appreciate these questions. Okay, I'm trying to get to all the questions, guys. It's just they're all over the place, so I'm just trying to make sure I get to everybody's okay. I'm working at it.
Question I want to answer
Can
is
you
about transportation.
Okay,
Um,
I don't know where
Brooke,
that is.
I don't know. I'm probably jumping around. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Murphy,
okay though. It's
I
okay. I got
apologize.
it. Go
I
ahead,
just have
answer
the
it.
answer for that, and I know we're
Answer
probably
it. Go
So
ahead.
there's so many different ways. The question is, how do you go to and from an assignment? Do you get your car shipped? Do you rent a car? Whatever the case is. That really, there's so many factors that play into that. When I travel nurse, my first position was like literally, it wasn't that far. Someone like in the middle, so I never really I never had to like move or find new housing. I would just like crash at my boyfriend's crib like on my shifts, and then I would go home when I wasn't working. So it worked out great. When I went across the country, I did not ship my car. One, I'm originally from New York, as y'all know, so I'm very, very used to like public transit and finding my way around and like Uber and all that stuff. So like I know people are like, oh my god, like if I don't have a car, I'm gonna die. Like I'm not one of those people. So I flew over, found an Airbnb that was like walking distance with to the hospital. And I Ubered everywhere, public transport. They had like the BART and stuff there that you could use. Uber wasn't so bad. And that's kind of how I got around cheaper because gas over there was out of control. I wasn't used to those prices from like Maryland prices to California prices were very scary. So I was like, this car is gonna stay here and I'm gonna Uber. And that's really doable. I know people that have shipped their cars. I also know people that have rented cars as well and just factor that into as an expense. So they wouldn't put a whole bunch of miles on their car. But it really depends on where you're going. If you're going to a more like rural place where, Uber isn't all that, and a lot of public transportation, then you may want to consider, a rental or actually shipping your car or driving it over. I know people that love to make road trips out of stuff. I'm not a road trip kind of girl, but there are people who are, and they're like, oh, we're road tripping to our new assignment. I'm like, okay. You can also, try that. As we've been saying, like going into those Facebook groups and stuff and seeing what other people have done or what has made sense for them or asking what the transportation or getting around situation is like. down there will help you out and help you figure that out.
One, I've done all of the above. I've shipped, I've driven, I've flown, I've done it all. So yeah. Can you negotiate the amount of time or weeks that you want to extend a contract? Yes, you can. You can negotiate anything. If what you need is what you need, you can get that. So yes, you can negotiate the time and the weeks off and whatever you need for your contract. Don't sign anything if you don't feel comfortable with it or if it's not what you want.
And to add to that, when you extend a contract, just know that you have leverage because you've already been oriented. So they'd rather keep you than hire someone completely brand new and train them all over again. So it's like, hey, I need a week off to go to Miami, and then go to almost always.
They really eat right out of your hands when you're extending, especially if you make a good impression everywhere. That should go without saying, but like especially on travel contracts, like be nice to people and like help out and stuff like that, because that's the kind of stuff that like when it does come time for you to want to extend and need, like people are so much more willing to work with you. Like I've seen it get real catty. Like, oh no, we don't like her. No one give her a day off. No one switch with her. Like it gets so catty. So like just be nice and mind your business and do great things and you'll love it.
I have talked to some recruiters that state that hospitals will accept someone that does not have experience in a field. I specialize in one field, but they want to place me in med surg. Is it up to the hospitals to make that decision? Well, this can be twofold. One, yes, it is up to the hospitals, but also it's up to you. If you don't feel comfortable in an assignment or where you're going or that specialty, do not accept it nor try to get a job there. But the caveat to that is, for example, my first travel assignment was in the CV PICU, and I'm actually PICU trained. So the hospital actually accepted me with no training, and they were okay with it, and they said it was fine, and that they would train me, and that was my first assignment. So yes, hospitals do accept you depending on the floor, the manager, etc., and what you are clinically trained in. If they feel that you make a good impression on your interview and all of that, and that you're willing to learn, yes, they can accept you without that experience. So it is hospital unit based, but it also is ultimately up to you. But real life example of somebody who only now traveled in CV PICU. So what do you do come tax time? Do you have to save your proof of paying for housing, and how do you prevent getting audited? There's no preventing getting audited, unfortunately.
Yeah, my first year travel nursing, that was my first year not doing my taxes by myself because I didn't want to do anything wrong. So I would say if you're not CPA, I would go ahead and take it onto a CPA if you're not sure. But yeah, because it gets testy and tricky.
And then to add to that, just have like some kind of paper trail that you were paying for your tax home, because in order to qualify for those stipends, you need to prove to the IRS and that travel nurse agency that you have two incomes, or not two incomes. You're paying for two houses, essentially. So a remote home and a tax home. So you don't. It's not that you won't get audited. It's more of that if you do get audited, you have to show proof that you really did qualify for those tax-free stipends. Otherwise, that's tax fraud. And the way to qualify this is that you have to pay fair market housing for the room for your tax home for that time. So whether you do it over Venmo, or you do a check and you have a carbon copy, or you did it over like a Zelle transfer, just keep records somehow, preferably electronically, so you can always reference that you were paying rent or a mortgage for your tax home.
There's also a guy, he's called a travel tax guy, travel nurse tax guy. Those Facebook groups are super helpful again, but there's like a person who everyone usually like goes to the site, and it has like all these travel nurse tax resources. I'll find it as well and try to link it into the email for you guys. But like we said, the resources are just super, there's a plethora of those resources to help you with it when it comes to tax time. because we are not tax professionals and we do not want to steer you in the wrong direction. I think I'm trying to get to everybody's question. For the package questions about the insurance, if you guys will just email me, or you can DM me at Catchbra if you can, for these benefits questions, because they're specific to trusted, so we can't just like give these answers out to everyone. If you specifically want them for trusted, we can I can get our actual benefits people connected with you guys. Okay, and my email is also on the platform. Andrea. So for this, you can, when you do interviews for travel nursing, you can actually ask the manager if that schedule is possible. But the problem, not even the problem, the thing about travel nursing is that we are staffing for their needs. So nothing is ever guaranteed. You can't always guarantee that you're going to get X amount of time off, because if they need you on that Saturday or that whatever day, they're going to put you on. But when you're doing your interviews, when you complete your profile, especially with Trusted, if you say that you need that specific schedule and that hospital is willing to work with you, that manager is willing to work with you and give you that, you can, one, get that in your contract, written in your contract, as well as signed off by the person that you're working for to get you that schedule. But will that be give you a little bit more slim pickings on like hospitals that you can choose from, units you can choose from? Yes, because as I said before, like we are staffing their needs, so it is a little bit of a difficult answer with that. But if I didn't answer it specifically, you can email me or DM me. It's totally fine. But I totally feel your pain. You should get paid what you're worth. But yeah, so if you have any like wiggle room or anything like that on your actual specific scheduling, I think it would be a good decision for you. All right, I think we're almost done with these questions.
I think there's somewhere in the
If my main specialty is med-surg tele, but I floated to ED, psych, ICU, HPU, and been detailed for months to ICU and COVID ICU, can I work as a traveler in one of these specialties?
I think it depends how competent and confident you are in these fields, and if you can convince the person vetting you that you are competent or you will be a safe nurse. So, I mean, if you floated like once or twice to the ED and you're an ICU nurse, probably won't cut it inversely. But it really just it's like a very subjective question. But basically, if you're comfortable, if you're competent, and if you're confident. But with some time in
You're cutting out a little bit, Jared.
Oh, sorry. But I have not floated, but I have taken a contract not in my specialty. But I was able to convince the person this was during COVID though, so I was able to convince the person vetting that I was competent in that specialty. But just kind of take that with a grain of salt, and really at the end of the day, it's your license on the line. It's that hospital, and there's still patients on the other side of that.
And also, just one thing I wanted to say about like going off your specialty. I know I had a really bad misconception as an ICU nurse that like, oh yeah, I could do med surg because like ICU is so much harder. It's its own animal. Like, don't think that, oh yeah, I've like transferred a patient down there and I saw what they do, I can do it. Or you know what I mean? I've like I had practicum there or something. Like, if you aren't like that, there's a reason why they say you need to have a certain amount of experience, because you are expected to come in, figure out where the bathroom is, learn the supply codes, and get to work. Like, no one's going to be orienting you on how to, do everything the way that, they do it. So if you're not like super familiar with the basics of how that type of unit runs, you don't want to be signing up for that. I was floated to med surg and I was like, whoa, I don't know what's going on here. I've never been here. I don't know what's going on. And it was a steep learning curve. So just like, don't poo-poo any other specialty because you think it might be harder, or what you do is harder, because trust me. And just like definitely start off with your home base. I would definitely start off with your home base.
We just want to err on the side of caution always, guys, because we want you to protect your license. It took you a long time and a hard time to get that license. And we don't want to ever tell you, you know what I mean? Like, oh, do this or do that. Like, you can only do what you feel comfortable with. And also, if you ever get into a situation that you feel uncomfortable with, always tell your recruiter, always tell your liaison or whoever you can at your hospital or assignment or whatever. So then, you can get out or change the situation. But we always want to protect you, the patients, and everyone's safety. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Is travel nursing doable with graduate school?
I'm not in school, but I do have other friends who are in grad. Oh wait, actually, aren't you an MP?
Maybe. Oh yeah, but I didn't travel nurse till after. I know people that do it. I personally went to a super traditional school where I was like in school a lot. And I had the clinical hours I had to get done. Like I know a lot of the students I took in had a lot less hours to do than I had to do. So I would say, if that's something that you're thinking of doing, I notice more online-based programs work for that type of situation than if you're going to like a brick and mortar, traditional school. That's one. But two, if you're planning on doing that, I would make sure that your school, and at least like maybe advisor, someone is clued into that. Because if they're thinking you're in XYZ location, especially if they're trying to help you find preceptors and things like that, and you're just like, oh yeah, I know that y'all think I'm in Baltimore, but I'm actually in Tucson, Arizona. And meanwhile, they have 6, preceptors ready for you in Baltimore. That might not be the greatest. And also some schools, especially the online ones, I know that they may have like stipulations with nursing, working with providers in certain states, because they may not be licensed or whatever in those states. So just make sure that your school knows what you're doing if you're planning on like taking clinical assignments and stuff out there when you're traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, we know a lot of people that have done it and do it, but you just have to communicate. Communication and organization are the hugest things that they tell us about, is that like you really have to be organized with your schedule and things like that, and then communicate, like Ashely said, with your school, and then also with your company and or your unit.
I would say that, yeah. And the unit, honestly, like I know a lot of you guys would know, as staff nurses alone, they barely care that you're in school. They definitely don't care that you're in school as a travel nurse when you're there probably replacing somebody else that went to school. So make sure that your schedule, like whatever, you're able to manipulate your schedule to work with whatever their staffing needs are, because at the end of the day, you signed up to work for their needs, not when it was really convenient for you. So like when I would say the number one person that you need to make sure knows what's going on is your school, because honestly the job, that if they hear too much rigmarole, they'll probably just send you on your way and find somebody who doesn't have so many complications. So just make sure it's something that works out for your schooling, and that it's not too troublesome to you taking the shifts you need to be taking.
Exactly. And like I said before about scheduling, always talk to the manager when you do your interview, and also put it in your profile, tell your recruiter and everything. If there is a certain scheduling issue or problem you have, if you are in school or whatever may be the case, because as we said, we're staffing and providing for their needs. So you should be as upfront and communicative as you can with, what the knowledge that you have to, do everything for both parties. Okay.
Yep.
So we're a little bit over time, but I'll try to answer these last couple of questions that we have.
I see someone directed to me about traveling as an RN while being an NP. That's something I get a lot. y'all should know your Practice Act. Per the Nurse Practice Act, I have to say this disclaimer. You are supposed to always practice at the highest extent to which you are trained and licensed. So with that said, technically, as a nurse practitioner, you really should not be working as an RN, period. Because it's a scope of practice issue. And when there comes a time where you can intervene as a provider, but you're not a provider in that role, it can become a ethical issue and things like that. So with that said, I did it. Now, my caveat was that the state in which where I was traveling, which was California, I was not licensed as a nurse practitioner there. I was only licensed as an RN there. I was licensed nurse practitioner in my home state of Maryland. So technically, when I went to California, I couldn't be NP anyway. So I didn't have an issue with it. No one ever bothered me or said, "Oh, you're an NP, you can't work here." Like, it was never that. Whenever I did submit licensure and stuff, because they verify all your licensure, they did ask for that information to make sure I wasn't on the run as an NP trying to work as an RN. But I've never had any issues, or no one has ever said anything about me working as an RN with NP licensure, like, NP credentials. But keep in mind your Nurse Practice Act. That's something I always should keep in mind. Whenever you're doing anything, just always remember, if you are licensed as both, if you are in an RN role, you are an RN. You can't go deciding to write orders. You can't go deciding to tell people what to do because that's not your role. And making sure you have that clear line, knowing where that line stops.
Can you discuss returning to a contract job after your contract ends if you don't want to extend at that time? A lot of people I know have done that. If they want to go somewhere else and then they come back, like, it's no big deal. As we all mentioned before, just leave in good standards, be nice, be helpful, all the things. As long as you leave on a good bill, and you know what I mean? Like, there's usually no issues or no qualms. They'll usually have you back. I've been in situations like that. So usually it's no issue or no problems with that. As long as you leave on good terms and good everything, you can. And I would also suggest getting their email too.
Yeah, so they have to have a need when you want to come back. Mm-hmm. So if whatever need you are filling is no longer needed, you can't just walk up in there and say, "Hey, I was here before." But if they have a need and you're in good standing, you can definitely go back. I have done it both ways, where I actually reached out to the manager first and said, "Hey, I want to come back," and they're like, "Oh yeah. Just make sure you submit yourself. I'll look for your name." Or vice versa. I contacted my recruiter and was like, "Hey, can you check if I can get back in here?" And both were fine. I don't know about like planning it in advance, like say, "Oh, I want to come back in December." Like, I don't know if that works as a thing. They may say, "Oh, we'll keep you in mind," or whatever, but it's just whoever's available right now. We have a need right now. It kind of just rolls, so you can't really like put dibs on it, as far as I know. Unless y'all are real cool, but for the most part, it's just be nice, and then you'll more than likely be welcome back, because at the end of the day, they don't have to spend as much time, aka dollars, on teaching you how to do things on that unit.
And just get their contact info as well. That's always a good point, is just get the manager's contact info. Mm-hmm. Is it common to have your contract ended early? Will the hospital give you a 2-week notice before ending your contract early?
That's going to be a no. It is common, and no, they don't have to give you 2 weeks.
Everything is at will, guys. So at will means that at will they will let you go. Period.
At right now, I know people that have been let go at 6:45 p.m.
They show up.
You're good. Bye.
Yeah, I've been canceled, I think 5 times. Not to scare any of you guys, but I've been canceled like 5 times. I've been canceled before I even deployed on a contract. To be there on a Monday, and I was canceled on like a Friday. On my one contract, I was canceled with Trusted on one of them. There was actually, I didn't even know this, but it was in my contract. I had a 30-day clause in my contract, so the hospital had to give me 30 days before they cut me. I didn't know that existed, but my other friends only had like 8 days, or the other nurses with the other agencies, they actually only had, I think, 7-day clauses, so they were able to be canceled after 7 days. So that was actually kind of cool. But my last one, I walked into my shift or basically I was canceled right before my shift. I got a call at 10 a.m. It said, "Hey, we are canceling you. Today's going to be your last shift." So I was canceled at 10 a.m. I hopped on Facebook and I hit up all my contacts and recruiters, and I had a new contract by 2 p.m. that day. So I had a new contract in 4 hours, and I started that next Monday. So not a big deal. It's not a huge deal, but definitely a nuisance. But you can definitely work around it, and then sometimes it may actually work out in your favor, especially if it's a crisis contract or like higher paying contract or like maybe a contract you want to follow through for. So it does happen.
All right, good. Last question. Can you renegotiate your pay after you start a contract? For instance, if you find out another traveler is being paid more from another company.
I feel like I've heard this one before.
This is during the contract?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, spicy.
I've heard that some places can do it. I don't know how common it is. I've heard it's happened before, but when you think about it from a business perspective, if it means losing you, which is someone they've already trained, someone they've already invested in, they may be able to renegotiate the contract, especially on an extension. So if you're going to do it on an extension because they can renege that contract. But is it common? I haven't heard of it too many times. Nothing is impossible. So if you don't ask, the answer is no. So, but before you ask that question, make sure you have proof. So if that traveler says, "Hey, he's getting paid this much" or whatever, have a screenshot of their pay package and say, "Hey, can you match this?" That chances are that recruiter. Well, at that point, it's a game of chicken. If that recruiter or that company is willing to basically risk the contract for you, so it's either they're going to let you go or they're going to keep you and just keep that lesser rate. So,
if you've already signed the contract, it is a no. It would be very unlikely, and that's what from our nurse advocates. But if you are before a contract, like Jared said, get all the information, send it in. I have had contracts upped for that exact reason. If you're on extension, yes, get all the information and everything. But once you've signed on that dotted line, it's kind of like, a done deal. I'm sorry to say that, but it is kind of what it is at that point. But like we said, if you use your resources and you do everything you can beforehand, you hopefully will get the best pay package for you. We appreciate you guys all for showing up. And I want to thank you guys again for everything you're doing out there. I know it's a lot, but we are here to support you and just love on you guys so much. And thank you guys for joining. We have 2 more up and coming, so just stay tuned for the next Travel Nurse Deep Dives. And thank you, Jared and Ashely, for just being great hosts. We appreciate you guys all for showing up, and you guys have a great night. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Guys.